Morning.
Good morning, and hello, everybody else. Welcome to Conversations from 6 Feet. Of course, in this case, we're probably 6 blocks or 6 miles,
We are.
really following that CDC limit here. Very good. Well,
Yeah,
Julie, thanks for coming in. And,
definitely.
and of course, what we're trying to do with this, Julie, and everybody else who's watching now, is we're just trying to give quick tips, some helpful suggestions from folks that we know, and learn a little bit more about them as well in the process of all this. So thanks for joining us, and Julie, thank you for being part of
Welcome.
this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself in the sense of why would we be talking to Julie right now?
Sure. So I am a registered dietitian and I work at Davidson College and also my own private practice. I specialize in disordered eating and eating disorders, but I also see individuals for any number of nutrition related concerns. And given our current state of quarantine or 6 feet distance from others and social distancing, it's never better time to focus on nutritional health. And
Absolutely.
if you think about the fact that most of our immune health resides within our digestive tract, it gives you a little bit of insight as to how important it can be to focus on nutrition.
Julie, thanks for that little bit of explanation. And I just learned a few things about you too there. So really great. Thanks for being here with that
Definitely.
expertise. And so tell us a little bit about what's happening in the Whittington household these days.
Well, we are trying to follow that posted COVID-19 schedule with like academic time and exercise time and social media, not social media, trying to find a balance. And so Ryan and I are both working from home, trying to homeschool. My twins are 7 years old and they're in first grade at Davidson K-8. And then Grace is in fifth grade at Davidson K-8 and Ella is in eighth grade at Bailey. So quite a different spectrum of needs and schooling, and whether there is interest in continuing with schooling. There's been a lot of musical instruments, which actually has been pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Any drums?
I know. I think Ella wished she had some drums. I think a lot of us wish we had some drums.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you all are kind of a sports
we are
Europe kind of family.
That
this has been
all
a big change for you all.
This is very different for Ella, who plays club volleyball, and most of the tournaments are getting shifted or canceled. And it's amazing how different your life looks when you delete all the extracurriculars. Baseball's canceled, dance is canceled. And it does offer an interesting time for us to reflect on the other important aspects of our life and focus on our emotional health and our physical health in ways that sometimes we didn't have enough time or spend enough time on before.
So let's transition then. There's a couple of questions that people are asking.
Sure.
And so these are kind of softball questions for you too. But one question is it safe for people to be getting groceries delivered to the house?
Yes, it is. And it is most likely safer than going to the store to buy your own groceries, just because COVID-19 is a respiratory illness and it's most often spread through droplets in the air. So from saliva or mucus or something like that, and that you're most likely to get it from another person. There actually have not been any proven cases of foodborne transmission of COVID-19. So in terms of you getting it from a food or food service transmission. So someone contaminating a food and then you getting it in that way. So there's been no reports of that happening. There are different things that are telling us how long the virus can live on cardboard and plastic and things like that. But in terms of any reports of it being within our food system or our water supply, there are none. I think that it is great that we have so many people working in the food delivery industry and so many restaurants staying open. And if we can get our groceries delivered, I do suggest when you have them delivered, and most places are saying that they will leave them on the front steps for you. to wear gloves, and when you bring them in the house, throw away all the outer wrappings.
Okay.
And if, with fresh produce and things, make sure you're washing those really well, with a fruit or vegetable brush, with water. If you have like a really good fruit and vegetable spray that is actually a cleanser for those products, you can scrub them with a scrub brush. It's gonna be a little easier to clean something with a rind or skin than it is something that's more delicate, like a berry or grapes or things like that. So apples and pears, you can kind of scrub them a little harder with a
Sure, sure,
brush.
sure. Thanks. That kind of swings into a second question I think people are asking, because we do want to. The restaurants are taking such a hit right now,
Yeah.
and we have some restaurant owners even in our congregation.
Mm-hmm.
So then they've switched over to delivery only.
Sure.
Is that safe to order food from restaurants?
It is. It is. And I think it's a great way to support our communities, the restaurant industry. I think some restaurants have specific guidelines for their local restaurants. So it may be different from one restaurant to another, but some are offering free delivery. Some are offering, to drive up and they will bring it out to the car to you. I think that is definitely preferable than going into the restaurant and having more interaction, because you're going to have to be closer than 6 feet to like receive the food.
Yes.
And all of that. And so, I mean, I think that using some common sense with that, think about if somebody had the flu. I mean, you're probably not going to want to be exchanging, any conversations, items with them either. So proper hand washing, hand gel if you have hand gel, those kinds of ways to make sure we're continuing to practice good hygiene and preventing transmission from like skin to skin or from talking to somebody.
Sure, thanks. That I think that helps. I think what is a really cool way to serve that we didn't think of before.
Agree.
So I got to share with you a meme that I saw. It was hilarious last week, and actually it was Joy that got it. It was on her Facebook because I'm not part of all that. And it was a Barbie doll, me before quarantine, and then it was a slightly heavier Barbie doll, me after quarantine. And so I'm wondering, how do you eat healthily at home during this time?
Mm-hmm. And that's a great question. I think that a lot of individuals are struggling with how to eat healthfully when you're stuck at home, eat healthfully in a different dynamic, whether you're used to eating alone and now all of a sudden you have the whole family at home, you got pets, you're tight quarters. So there's a lot of dynamics that are shifting, environmental changes. And I think it's important to focus on a lot of different things when it comes to how do I stay healthy at home. It's going to affect our physical and emotional wellness in terms of how we're eating, how we're taking care of ourselves. But I think that trying to stay on a schedule is really important in terms of trying to have the repetition and not going too long in between meals. When you're waking up, maybe you didn't eat breakfast before because you were rushed and you were getting up early and you were getting out of the house. And now all of a sudden you got all this time and you can make big breakfast, and then you can, jazz it up if you have the supplies to jazz it up.
Right.
And you can get kids in the kitchen and that kind of a thing. So it can change the entire way that you are fueling yourself. But I think it is important to think about, all right, during the week, what do I want my diet to look like? And am I used to eating breakfast? Am I used to eating lunch? Am I used to eating dinner? Because ideally we are eating regular meals and regular snacks, not going longer than 3 or 4 hours in between eating. And snacks allow us to bridge that time between meals. But if we are try to stay on that healthy pattern, healthy schedule, making sure that there's plenty of fruits and vegetables in there, plenty of proteins, plenty of fiber, healthy fats. And sure, we can allow ourselves to have kind of treats to allow us to have less often foods. Maybe we're having some more junk food in the house. And that's not bad to have that, but it's a matter of balance. And how often are we letting our kids have all that junk food, and then they're not focused during their schoolwork, and then they're having trouble sleeping. Or how often am I eating throughout the day and grazing during meetings, and I didn't do that before, and I'm finding myself feeling differently. So we can kind of take a look at how we're eating now compared to how we were eating before, and has it been a healthy progression, or has it been an unhealthy progression? Are we feeling better? Are we feeling worse? How are we balancing that with exercise? How are we balancing that with sleep? Because with our emotional wellness, we certainly want to be protecting that because we can all get a little bit crazy being cooped up. I know that I do, having 4 kids and a husband and 2 dogs and a cat. And it's a lot of times. And we need to make sure that we're protecting our self-care, taking care of ourselves, and getting out, getting fresh air, being able to come back in, put away all of the food from your meal, clean up, put things away, and then have time what's not related or to food, not focused on food, because we don't want to have that, oh, I've been like grazing on food all day and thinking about it all day, and there's food everywhere. If we can have certain times set aside for eating and non-eating, that can help us feel more rejuvenated and keep our focus as well.
Sure.
So, I think that individuals who have any kind of disordered eating can be struggling now, maybe even more than ever, because there's a lot of ways that people cope with or without food. So emotionally, many individuals use food because you can control your food, and use it as a coping mechanism. So I'm not feeling great, so I'm going to go have something to eat, or I am watching a movie and I'm bored and I'm kind of mindlessly eating, or I'm so upset and nervous and worried about my food supply. Is there going to be enough? Maybe I shouldn't eat as much. Maybe I'm going to focus on my kids eating and not me eating. So there's a lot of different individuals struggling with a lot of different real concerns. And it's really important to maintain the lines of communication with your family and with loved ones. And if you have a counselor, if you have a dietitian, regular health professional who you're seeing, make sure that you know if they have virtual telesessions. Make sure you find out, hey, can I still come in for this appointment, or how do we maintain that communication? Because we don't want to sacrifice our emotional wellness in places where we don't have to. And if we can find alternate coping mechanisms other than food, so we can kind of separate food and feelings, then that's going to help so many people in so many ways. And yes, we're restricted because we're not having as much face-to-face, as much, going out with friends and social interactions. That's very limited. So that can put more stress because your normal coping mechanisms might be compromised. So I think that being able to make sure that you are going for a walk, or you are going outside to play. You're creating activities for the kids to do outside. I mean, we got a pond in our backyard, so my kids are going out fishing every now and then. And, there's
that's great.
Different little things that we can create or set time aside for that maybe we didn't before. Maybe we're doing art, maybe we're doing music. And these kinds of things can be really, really helpful to make you realize that you are in control of a lot more than your food. And while it's important to make sure that we maintain a healthy relationship with food, it's also that healthy relationship with our body, and how our body moves and how our body is taken care of.
Very good. Julie, thanks for this and your time. I don't know what you've got going on next. I'm sure there's some kind of homeschooling thing you're going to be doing.
I know. On to math.
On to math. Yes, here we go. But Julie, thanks. And thanks to each one of you for listening into Conversations from 6 feet, or in this case, more like 6 miles. And look forward to seeing you for our next installment.
Sounds
Have a great day, everybody. And Julie, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.